Welcome to Mysterious Encounters. Look at your phone, your computer, your wrist. It tells you a number, 2025. You believe it without question. But here's the unsettling truth. That number is arbitrary. It was chosen by men for reasons that have nothing to do with reality. And if you trace it back through councils, through popes, through emperors, you find something disturbing. Our calendar is not a measurement of time. It is a political document, a theological weapon, a system designed to sever us from cycles that once connected us to the stars. This afternoon we ask, what year would it actually be? And why were we made to forget? Before there were numbers, there was the moon. Every human culture for tens of thousands of years marked time by its cycles. 29.5 days from new to new. A rhythm built into biology, into tides, into women's bodies. The lunar calendar was not invented. It was observed. It was a relationship, not a calculation. The first cities formalized this relationship. They counted lunations. They tracked the stars. They knew that 12 moons made a year approximately 354 days. But the sun does not wait for the moon. The solar year is 365 days. This gapy 11 days was the first crack in humanity's relationship with time. To reconcile the two, they added extra months. Intercalation, a fix. But the fix was not perfect, and perfection was required. The lunar calendar was alive. It pulsed. It required attention. You could not simply look at a page. You had to look at the sky. This was not inefficiency. It was connection. And it was the first thing centralized power would seek to sever. The Roman calendar, before Caesar, was a mess. It was lunar, but priests had manipulated it for centuries, adding days to extend political terms, removing days to shorten enemies' lives. By the time Caesar came to power, the calendar was 90 days ahead of the actual seasons. The harvest festivals were happening in what felt like summer, but the fields said winter. Caesar, fresh from Egypt, had seen something different. The Egyptians had a solar calendar 365 days with no lunar interference. It was stable, predictable, controllable. He brought the Egyptian astronomer Sosigenes to Rome and commanded, "Fix this." The result, in 45 BCE, was the Julian calendar, a purely solar system. 11 days simply disappeared. The year was made 365.25 days long, with a leap year every 4 years. The people were confused, but they adjusted. They always adjust. This was the first great severance. The moon, once the marker of sacred time, was demoted to decoration. The year now marched to the sun's drum. But even this was not accurate enough. The Julian year was 11 minutes too long. Over centuries, those minutes accumulated. By the 16th century, the calendar was 10 days off again. The spring equinox, critical for dating Easter, was drifting, and the church could not tolerate drift. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII issued a papal bull. Its effect was simple and brutal. 10 days would never exist. Thursday, October 4th would be followed by Friday, October 15th. The people of Catholic Europe went to sleep on the 4th and woke up on the 15th. They had lost 10 days of their lives. The church explained, the calendar was wrong. This fixed it. But the fix was not just astronomical, it was theological. The Council of Nicaea in 325 had decreed that Easter must fall after the spring equinox. By 1582, the equinox was falling 10 days early. If left uncorrected, Easter would eventually drift into summer, destroying the liturgical calendar, undermining church authority. Gregory's reform was about preserving power as much as precision. Protestant Europe refused. England held out until 1752, by which time they were 11 days off. When they finally adopted the Gregorian calendar, riots broke out. People demanded, "Give us back our days." The government replied, "There are no days to give. They never existed." This is the moment the modern mind was born. Time was no longer something you experienced. It was something you were told. So what year is it really? The answer depends entirely on who you ask and when they started counting. The Gregorian calendar claims it is 2025 years since the birth of Christ. But even here the math is wrong. The monk Dionysius Exiguus, who invented the Anno Domini system in the 6th century, miscalculated. Most scholars now place the actual birth of Jesus between 6 and 04 BCE. By that measure, we are not in 2025, we are in 2029 to 2031. But why start at Christ at all? The Jewish calendar, still in use, places us in 5785. It counts from the biblical creation, a date calculated by rabbis in the 2nd century. The Islamic calendar, beginning with the Hijra in 622 CE, says it is 1446. The Hindu Kali Yuga, one of 4 great ages, began in 3102 BCE. By that measure, we are in 5127. The ancient Egyptians counted from the accession of their pharaohs. The Romans counted from the founding of their city of Urb Condita. By that measure, it is 2778. The Byzantine calendar, used in Orthodox lands until the 18th century, counted from the creation of the world September 1st, 5509 BCE. That would make this year 7534. And then there is the Holocene calendar, proposed by scientists in 1993. It adds 10,000 years to the Gregorian system. Starting at the beginning of the geological era we still inhabit. By that measure, it is 12,025. Every number is true, every number is false. Time itself has no number. We do. A calendar is not a neutral tool. It is a control mechanism. Whoever controls time controls what you celebrate, when you rest, how you measure your life. The shift from lunar to solar was a shift from observation to obedience. You no longer looked at the sky to know the season. You looked at a page, approved by Rome, printed by the state. The 7-day week is another relic of power. It has no astronomical basis. The moon's phases are roughly 7.4 days apart, not 7. It comes from Jewish tradition, adopted by Rome, enforced by the church. The weekend is a recent invention, a concession to labor movements. Even our hours are arbitrary, divided into 60 minutes because the Sumerians used base 60, not because the universe demands it. The Gregorian calendar is now global. It is the calendar of business, of diplomacy, of the internet. But this universality is not natural. It was imposed through colonization, through trade, through the sheer weight of the West. Every culture that once marked time by the moon now marks it by the Pope's decree. The lunar rhythms still exist. They still affect the tides, the animals, the body, but we no longer see them. We see numbers on a screen. The calendar tells you it is 2025. The moon knows different. The stars know different. Your body, which still responds to lunar cycles, knows different, but you have been trained to ignore them. To trust the page, not the sky. So here's the question. If time is a human invention, who decided how much of yours you have left?